Hey, it's Tim, Pickup Truck Plus SUV Talk. If you're first time on the channel, welcome. On this channel, we do truck SUV news, reviews, interesting stuff. Subscribe, stick around. It's a good time. Trust me, we have a great time on this channel. Today, I'm arguing because that's what I do on this channel. I argue with people that are my friends and fans. And this time, I brought in a special guest. I'm going to bring in Jill Simnello, who's the managing editor of PickupTruckTalk.com. There she is, Jill. Say hello to the audience.
Hi, audience.
So Jill is a new managing editor. She's a new part of the channel. And so I thought it'd be fun to have some video with her and bring her on. A quick side note, if you noticed when she said a word, because those works with what she talks, you see her in camera, this is how this works. She has a bit of a mark on her eye that I did not cause.
You didn't cause. I will verify.
Yes, we had a very excited puppy.
You were in Nebraska. I'm in Chicago. So
right. So Jill is she's, like I said, new managing editor over there. She's doing a great job so far. She's in Chicago, so she has a really different perspective on it than I provide, being in Nebraska. So it's nice to have her give her viewpoint. We used to do some podcasts back in the day, and maybe kind of bringing that back a little bit, I guess I would say. Anyways, before I ramble much more, we're talking about the Jeep 4xe. We have some various different thoughts about this, but before we get dive into this, Jill, you wrote the story up on the 5 things to know. You wrote some stuff. You did some background stuff information on it. So what is the Jeep 4xe?
all right. So the Jeep 4xe is basically Jeep's first foray in the United States into electrification. And before, you hear the word electrification and it's kind of nebulous. Do you mean all electric? Do you mean what? And no, we don't mean all electric. It is basically a plug-in hybrid. And so what that means is you plug it into the wall, probably take about 5 hours, you get 100% charge, and you get 25 miles of all electric range. And they say that on average, most people's commute is about 30 miles. So when you think about it, a lot of people will probably be able to go to and from work without ever using the gasoline engine. So, okay, plug-in hybrid is what it is. The badge is 4xe. I think that's the way you would say it, 4xe. And it is basically a 4-door Jeep Wrangler that has a plug-in hybrid powertrain. It is mated to the 2.0 liter 4-cylinder engine, and it's the same engine that you see in the other, gasoline only model. And so it's basically the same car, just you can plug it in and you get 25 miles of all electric range.
Yep. And so there's been some conversations online, and Jill and I have had conversations, and it seems to me that many auto journalists are kind of all across the board on this. I have my feelings that it's lame as hell, and Jill has her feelings that it's cool AF. So let's start with why do you like it so much? So let's start with that.
All right. So, obviously we're in different locations. I live in Chicago, and I work remotely, so I don't have a commute. And when I'm running errands, I'm going to the gym, I'm going to the grocery store, I'm going to see my parents-in-law. I'm, going within probably a 10-mile radius of where I live. So I can get anywhere I need to go and back without, topping a 25-mile range. And so for me, living in the city, if I had this vehicle, I'd probably not use the gas engine much at all. Like I have a sister who lives in Indianapolis. I might drive down there, and that's when I would tap the engine. And so I think for somebody who lives in the city, who is buying this for more of a lifestyle vehicle, which, by the way, I see a lot of Jeep Wranglers here, and I will bet you money the only off-roading they're doing is when they drive over a curb in the parking lot. So, there are a lot of people that are going to buy this as more of a lifestyle vehicle, or because they think it looks cool, and they're never, ever, ever going to take it off-road. Or if they take it off-road, it's probably going to be once in a blue moon. So to me, I think that this is a really excellent urban oriented vehicle. The Wrangler in general has an excellent turn radius. It is narrow enough that it fits in tight city spaces, and it's short enough that you can parallel park it fairly easily. And so adding that 25 miles of range, for me, for being in an urban environment, makes it the perfect vehicle. My complaints about the Wrangler really centered on fuel economy, and Jeep has completely taken that away.
Yeah, and so I think that's one of the hard parts I have with this is I drove a Mitsubishi Eclipse with the plug-in hybrid, and it was 5 hours of charging, and the charge lasted driving across town, so it lasted 15 miles. And when I looked at the energy I was actually spending on that for electricity rates, versus a gas was like a $2 a gallon. 5 hours of charging saved me $1.50. And if you look at that on the case of $1.50 a day, because basically I was like, I don't know, it was like 20, 30 cents of charging power to be able to charge that up versus what I used in fuel. And the Wrangler already gets 21 miles per gallon, which is terrible, right? But that's okay because
Okay,
it's
and by the way, I'm never getting 21 miles per gallon in that vehicle. It's more around 12.
Okay, for those that don't drive like Mario Andretti, it gets 21 miles per gallon. And but I guess that's my thing is it's $1.50 a day, right? And so at most, let's say you're saving, let's say $10 a week. Let's round number off. So you're saving $10 a week, which is 5 gallons of gas, right? And so over the course of a month, you save $40, give or
That's
take.
a couple of Starbucks. Come on.
Right, but the hybrid we both know is going to be about the equivalent of the same upcharge price of probably the diesel engine is, which is about $3,000 to $4,000 more. And so if you're saving maybe $500 a year, you're looking at least 6 to 8 years of ownership to make up for the difference.
So I'm going to counter that a little bit. In my article, I did say that I thought it would be a $4,000 upcharge. But when I posted the article on my Facebook page, several people chimed in and they said because it has the 17 kilowatt hour battery pack, it would be eligible for the full federal credit. And so it could potentially be a $7,000 upcharge. So let's start with that. But then you will get like the federal credit back. So basically it'll even itself out is what I was hearing from people who are more electrically oriented than I am. I'm not up on the federal credit stuff or the EV stuff. So I think, frankly, at the end of the day, this could be like an even better deal than saving at the pump. And I also would like to point out, if you live in a city and you are never filling up your gas tank, I could go a month literally with maybe putting 100 miles on the vehicle in a week. And so, and that's just, running out to the suburbs to go to the grocery store and coming back. And then, because I'm trying to put miles on the car. And so, potentially, like I could go a full month without spending any money. And in Chicago, gasoline is about $3 a gallon. So, what is it? It's an 18.4 gallon tank, which, okay, that's another topic. But, and I'm really bad at doing math in my head. So that's like $500, 500 and something.
Yeah. Well, if you do per year, sure.
No, in a month. Like if you were going to fill up your tank every week.
So $18. So that's $60 $60 a week.
Yeah.
So 240.
Okay. So again, can't do math in my head. Totally okay with that. Give me a scratch paper. I can write it out. But yeah, so if you're thinking like $240 a week, that's a really nice dinner someplace, or a month. You said a month. Yeah. Again, I have this thing called Jill math, and it never adds up properly.
Well, and the other thing though is you're looking at purely gasoline going in, and there's two counters to that. Is number one is that you actually need to occasionally per month turn the gasoline engine over. It needs to run. The gasoline will turn into alcohol vapors in the gas tank. It's very bad for it, actually. The Chevy Volt, was it the Volt that had the split? Yeah, the Volt. A lot of owners were talking about, hey, you actually do need to run that gasoline engine. It's not good on the vehicle. If it's pure electric only, that'd be one thing. But having a little 2-liter, you got to run that. And number two is that electricity costs money. So even though we're looking at, this always bothers me about the EV debate, is that we're always talking about, hey, I just can plug it in and I get free gas. Well, sure, you get free gas, but it's still going to cost you something to plug it in. And it depends where you're at in the city, right? So, you have the advantage of having a garage. But there are people in the city that don't have garages that be plugging this in at Walgreens and hoping they get a full charge.
Fair point. And I've always contended that any kind of an electric vehicle with a plug is really not meant for somebody that doesn't have a garage. So I'm gonna start with that, and then though people do it, they'll go shopping at Whole Foods and plug in their car. Which, okay, all the money you just saved, you completely spent at Whole Foods. But I just, you make a fair point about the plug, but the other thing is you're going to be charging overnight when the electric cost is way down. And most EVs have the ability for you to schedule and like when electric charges are going to be at the lowest cost. So you don't have to charge at peak times like 5 o'clock when everybody's just getting home from work. You can wait and schedule it to charge at 3 a.m. when nobody is using electricity. Therefore, you get a better price. So, I mean, yes, electricity costs money, but it's not as much money as gasoline, obviously, and you can mitigate the cost by scheduling it to charge in the middle of the night.
Yeah, and let's also say that normal rule-abiding people aren't using electricity at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Unless you have insomnia.
That's true. That's true. So let's take this another aspect is that, there was conversation in the backgrounder and the press material stuff that you can go off-roading quietly. And the reason they say this is that there's a EV only button, a battery saver button. So that way, if you want to drive the trail, you can click the button and save the battery till you get the trail. I have two problems with this is, I guess my number one problem is that you're still driving a 2-liter small displacement turbocharged engine to the trail, which is, it's not a great powertrain. And they always do this. They take a small displacement engine with a battery. And yeah, it's insane. 390 horsepower, 470 foot-pounds of torque. I mean, it's a torque beast, right? I think those are the numbers. And so it's cool when you add them together. But when you don't, and you're driving it around, which is, if you're going on a trip, most of the time you're driving with the not so fantastic powertrain. And that's always been my concern with that, is that it's like, even with that Mitsubishi I had, it was lame. It was a lame powertrain versus what I could have gotten with natural
So
aspirated.
I'm going to stop you right there and just say Mitsubishi.
Well, sure. But still, I mean, it's not a great powertrain.
I like the 2.0 liter engine in the Wrangler. I like that better than the V6. I thought the V6 was clunky.
Okay, so now you get to the trail, and you have the battery power in the trail. And they made the point that you can go quiet off-roading. And actually in 4Low, they said you can go for like an hour or 2 hours of just pure battery mode and have quiet. Now, to me, if you want to go for a couple hours in the woods with quietness, it's called taking a walk. I mean, hello. Oh, because every time I've gone off-roading, it's not that I'm hearing the engine so much. It's that I'm hearing the tires over the rocks. I'm hearing the skid plates hit. I'm hearing, the slippage of the trail. I'm hearing things that are the vehicle going through, not the engine going through. And by the way, what I think is really fascinating is what's going to happen with this Jeep. Jeep is one of the loudest vehicles on the market. They don't do great sound insulation. And so I wonder what's going to happen when this is a battery-only mode, and they actually are going to have creaks and moans that you can actually hear. That was one of the things I remember from doing the hydrogen drive with Toyota when they did the semi with Kenworth. They were shocked at how bad the Kenworth sounded when you drove it, because they took away the diesel engine noise. You can hear everything now. They were like, oh my gosh, we need washers, we need some foam, we need to cover up some of these noises. So I'm curious how that's going to work out.
But part of off-roading, don't you want to hear that stuff? I want to hear that stuff, because to me that's a good sound. That means the vehicle's doing what it should be doing.
Right. So, but you don't want to hear the engine then.
Well,
that's what I don't understand.
I don't care. Not when I'm off-roading. No, I don't really want to hear the engine. And I mean, the other part of that is, without the engine sound, you can hear what the vehicle is doing better in terms of like rock slippage. You can hear your surroundings better. I don't know. I mean, okay, do I really care if I'm going to creep through the forest quietly? No, I really don't care. But again, you can hear the vehicle and the sounds around you better without the engine. And to me, it doesn't make a difference whether the engine is on or off. But the other point is, if you're going slowly, think of the amount of waste you're spewing into the environment and potentially breathing in, especially if you have a spotter who's out behind the vehicle, helping you. And in EV mode, you don't have any of that.
Sure.
Am I moving you away from lame as hell yet?
No. So we have because the other problem with this is that the range estimates they put out are always based on the stock vehicle and the ideal driving conditions. And one of the things with the Jeep Wrangler we know is it's one of the most modified SUVs out there. I've seen people buy them, drive across the street, do lift kits and tires right off the bat, without even driving it home. They're already doing lift kits and tires. And so now when you get an EV version, a 4xe of the Wrangler, you really don't want to change the tires. You really don't want to lift it, because that's adding more mass and changing up the physical dynamics of the vehicle, which are going to really impact the EV range. Because let's face it, it's a brick on wheels. It's not the most aerodynamic vehicle on the planet. And so now you have that. Another thing I'm really curious about, and you pointed this out in the article with the spec comparison, is it's heavy.
Yeah.
It's really heavy. And so how do you get that much range, and how does it feel like I'm going to work out when it's, what was it, 1,000 pounds more? I mean, it was an insane amount more than the gasoline.
Yeah, it's like 700 to 1,000 pounds more. It's over 5,000 pounds. So the thing is they give you an estimated range of 50 miles per gallon estimated. It's not estimated, MPGE equivalent. And so they've clearly tested that. So it's not like they're like, what number do we want to throw out there? Let's just say 50 MPGE and just see what happens. No, they've tested it. They're getting 50 miles per gallon equivalent. So the vehicle weighed more than 5,000 pounds when they were testing it. So it's not like, that necessarily figures in. So I think that's a non-argument right there. So they factored it in, it is how I'm going to say that. So I will point out that there are some vehicles like the Mitsubishi you were driving that get worse range than what they estimate. But I had the Toyota Prius Prime a few weeks ago, and they, I think, estimate that you get about 40 miles of all electric range. I was getting closer to 50. So I don't know. Sometimes I think they try and lowball it so that you get better and you're like, yay. But sometimes they try to be honest and then you get close to or under it and then you're like, boo. So I don't know. I'll be very curious to see where Jeep falls on the spectrum, because we haven't seen anything like this from them before. So this is their first foray into the plug-in electric field in the United States, as far as my recollection holds.
Yeah, this is the first time they've ever done it. I've never seen them do it. And I will say this: I will give them the credit. They did do it well. So they put the battery underneath the seats, and doesn't mess up the dynamics of the vehicle. You still get the departure angle. You still get the approach angle, are pretty good. And they raised all electronics in the engine base. It still gets 30 inches of water fording, I think is the number. Mm-hmm. And that's the biggest thing people don't understand is with water fording, they're always worried about air or water in the engine, but no, it's the alternator, it's the batteries, it's the wiring. You get that stuff above the belt line, which they did that well. But it's like most hybrid kind of offerings. It's only in the 4-door, right? I think it was only the 4-door. There's only certain trims. And then hopefully they're not going to do like other brands do, where they build that vehicle in the hybrid, but then they give it some different interior features and makes it so you can't do a real apples to apples comparison, because that one's got the bigger screen stock or it's got this one stock, and it's really kind of a pain in the butt for consumers.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the things that, and I can't talk about the interiors because we haven't seen the interiors, and we don't have detailed specs or feature lists yet. But the one thing I will point out is I also did an article that did a spec to spec comparison of the 2.0 liter 4-door Wrangler versus the 4xe, and the specs line up really, really well. In terms of interior volume, in terms of capability. I mean, the weight was different, and the fuel tank obviously was different. But
yeah, real quick, we didn't mention that the fuel tank was like 14 gallons on the hybrid and like 18 on the naturally. Or was it less than that?
I think it was 18.4 on the 18.4 gallon tank on the 4xe, and then I think it's like a 22 gallon tank on the 2.0 liter. I that's what's sticking in my head. I could be a little bit off one way or the other, but I feel like there was a 4.3 gallon difference between the two tanks, and I'm pretty sure that the 4xe had the 18.43 something gallon tank.
Sure.
But no, I mean, the thing that you have to keep in mind that I think your Nebraska head can't get over is the fact that the majority of these people are only going to be taking this off-road once in a blue moon. I was trying to figure out how many people actually take their Wranglers off-road. I did, I consulted the Google, but the Google failed me. And all I could find was something from back in 2013, where they said that 85% of Wrangler owners take their vehicle off-road. And it was a very unspecified quote. Do they take it off-road once? Do they take it off-road every week? Do they take it off-road once a year? So even if you have 85% of your Wrangler owners who are maybe at one point taking their vehicle off-road, there is still like a lot of time that they are driving in a city or suburban situation. And that's where this vehicle makes sense. You have all of the capability, everything that the regular gasoline model can do, this vehicle can do too. It has same. But for the 90% of the time that you're not taking it off-road, you could be in mostly all electric mode and save a lot of money. That's why I think this is cool AF.
Well, I still think it's lame to have a Wrangler around town. So there you go. There are our thoughts. If you live in the city, maybe this is what for you. If you live in the country, maybe not. Put your comments below. Where are you at? Is this a lame as hell or cool AF? Well, make sure we check those comments out. Let's check out pickuptrucktalk.com for more information from Jill. She's always writing stuff over there. Check out this other video over here on the channel. It's a good time. Trust me, you'll enjoy it. As always, subscribe. Thanks, Jill, for being on and providing your unique viewpoint from Chicago.
Thanks for having me.
All right, we'll see you down the road.